Welcome, everybody. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from across the globe. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Dayal, and this is Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast. I'm here with Kishore Chandra, and it's just us this morning. Achuta's not here, but we wish her well and hope she's well. But she's not joining us this morning, and we're tuning in live from New York. We got our live studio audience, and it's Friday. Happy Friday! And how you doing, Kishore?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. It's kind of a rainy, cloudy day here in New York. So I woke up like
I don't even
like
know
that.
what the weather is outside. I don't even know. Yesterday was beautiful. It was beautiful and
Yesterday
warm.
was gorgeous.
Today it's cloudy,
Yesterday was
not so
beautiful.
great.
But I am feeling very inspired by the kirtan last night and by your expert hosting abilities.
How
And I
was it?
really
I was
loved
part of me is feeling like I got to get somebody else to. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, I
no,
should say
you were
something meaningful.
no, you're great. And I really loved that text message that you read from who I think I know who it was from, but
Who do you think it
um
was?
I think it was Vera. I'm not sure.
It was the bro gave it away?
Yeah,
I didn't realize,
I
didn't
was
think I was
like,
gonna meet that.
This sounds like someone I know. But I really love the message you read and how you were talking a lot about simplicity. And a lot of the
Mm,
kirtans last night were really simple. And I think that
yeah.
sometimes, someone led kirtan last night, and I think it was his first time leading kirtan at the Bhakti Center. And he messaged me later. He was just like, that was a very humbling experience and this and that. And I think it's so interesting. And I, gave him all the encouraging words and told him he was great and everything. But I think it's so interesting how a lot of the times we convince ourselves into thinking that more complicated is better and more is better. And that it
Mm,
has to like look a certain way or be a certain way. We were talking about boundaries, we've been talking about home, we've been talking about our relationships to authority, we've been talking about all this stuff. And it's really interesting because in all of that like stuff that we've been talking about, it's like there is something simple at the core of everything. Relationships can get complicated, and our relationship to authority and like whatever hierarchy, all that stuff can get complicated. But something that I really love about bhakti, the practices of bhakti. I've been reading this book, rereading this book. The first time I read it, I kind of just like, didn't digest it. And now I'm really like sitting with it. It's called Jaiva Dharma. And I'm in this section that's talking about how like anyone can practice bhakti. Like there's no stipulations on whether or not you can practice. And I think that that's really such a powerful message when it comes to this philosophy and this lifestyle of like everyone has something to offer, whether it's complicated or whether it's super skillful or not, or whatever kind of material like pinnings that we're trying to put on it. It's like if it's coming from your heart, then it's really, really admirable. And the kirtans last night were really, a lot of them were really beautiful and simple and very powerful. And so I was really appreciating kind of that return to simplicity that you were mentioning yesterday.
yeah. I was having a lot of churnings of the heart during kirtan because I what I mentioned in the announcements was that for those of you that obviously weren't there, if you weren't at the Bhakti Center last night, is that especially in a place like New York City and especially in a world like today where there's this kind of pressure to be like living your purpose and almost kind of like this big sense of contribution or doing something or making it in a big way or making your mark or leaving your legacy or accomplishing something and can oftentimes be inspiring and energizing and motivating, and then also can also be a little feeling like we're not doing enough, or that I'm missing the boat, or that I'm not where I need to be, or I'm not doing enough. And I find myself in this dichotomy sometimes of seeing my potential and wanting to live my purpose and wanting to sort of rev up and do more, and like feeling like, yeah, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And then this other whole side of it of just like the text message that I read from a friend was, I want to Hey, I just want to connect and I want to hear about your dreams and your visions and like what are you thinking about for your life? This person has dreams to like start retreat centers or as a teacher or as a coach and a counselor and a healer and doing so many amazing things and I wanted to connect with them. And they just said, my dreams for life just seem to be getting simpler and simpler and simpler. And it was like, and then he said, just be present, love fully, and trust Krishna's will always. And it sort of like stopped me a little bit because I I was like, there it is. It was just like actually everything I need. Not to sound cliche, but like everything I need is in this moment. And if I can learn to be present, and if I can just love fully with my heart, and if I can just trust that actually I'm being guided, then if my purpose is meant to lead me to somewhere big and grand, then I will be led there and I'll be equipped for it with the spiritual tools needed for me to handle it with maturity. And if not, if my spiritual life purpose is just to be here, and I was thinking about that for myself, even at the Bhakti Center, because in a director position, it's like I feel like I need to be teaching and traveling and connecting and networking and pushing the envelope forward and like making inroads. And I want to meet the mayor and I want to meet the prime minister of India and I want to do courses and I got to lead retreats and I got to like make be big and make the Bhakti Center big. And then I'm also thinking like I just need to spend time with people here. Like I just need to like this past week has been a big. I've just been spending a lot of time. I find myself like asking how somebody's doing, and there goes my day. It's like there
Mm,
goes like, and like I walk out and I'm just like, I just need to be asking people how they're doing more often because
mm,
a lot that's really going on. And we talked a little bit about this earlier this week about like asking how people are doing and it just kind of being surface level. She was talking about like in London when you ask people, she was we were pitting New Yorkers and Londoners, against each other this week. But this sense of, you ask somebody how you're doing, or you're not supposed to really say it's just supposed to be quick and you move on. But I found myself in some real context, whether it's people living in New York, people living across the globe, Zoom calls, in-person meetings, just checking in with people and realizing how much. And sometimes you're just surprised. You're like, oh my God, like this is some serious stuff. And how
mm,
people just need care and they need friendship. And it wasn't that people are going through a lot. It was that people are going through a lot and feeling alone in it.
mm,
It wasn't like, okay, everyone's going through a lot, but it's like, I'm feeling alone. I'm part of a spiritual community and I don't know who I should like. Multiple times it was like, thank you so much. Like you're the only person I've shared this with, or this is the first time I'm talking to somebody about this, or and realizing like wow, like how much of my job, any of our jobs as leaders in a community or leadership positions, whether we're leaders in a family or leaders in a workplace or leaders in a spiritual organization or community, is is not to always feel like I've got to push the envelope forward and grow, and how much of it is to really just be present. I was thinking of this phrase that Srila Prabhupada would use at a certain point in the development of his own movement. He used this phrase to boil the milk. And I don't know if that's a phrase that we would be familiar super with in Western culture, but in India and Eastern cultures, they have various sweets that are made from milk. If you boil down milk, if you just put milk on a slow boil, I don't know if it works with almond milk or soy milk or oat milk, but if you put regular milk on a slow boil, it condenses and it gets sweeter and it gets creamier and it gets richer. And so this idea of just like let's just improve the quality of what we got. And
mm,
that's really hard because I think that takes being present, loving fully, and trusting in God's will because all the shiny things that are flashing by you and this person is doing this and this person's doing that and it's like okay, I'm not going to run chasing that. I'm just going to trust the process of being present, loving fully, and trusting God's will in my life and just like increasing the quality and the connection. And that's what Radha Swami told me when he said, what do you want to see at the Bhakti Center? It's like, I want to see an inspired,
mhm,
nourished, connected, enlivened community. And everything
mm,
flows from that.
mm,
And so that was just kind of my meditation a little bit at the kirtan last night. And I invited somebody to sing kirtan, and I knew they were going to lead a simple kirtan. And I knew
Mm,
that they were gonna, I knew that's who they were. And it was a little old school, and it was a little kind of simple, and no shiny bells and whistles. And I was just like, that was my meditation, just kind of bringing that
mm,
in.
mm. No shiny bells and whistles.
No shiny bells and whistles.
I like that. I like this is something that Brudge has put in the chat, which I think is really sweet, actually, and I think it really hits the crux of what we're talking about. And so he says, what you mentioned about comparing complicated and simple things reminded me of one Harikatha, or a lecture about Krishna I heard one time, and I believe it's also in a shloka or a verse somewhere. How in the service or savor realm, everything is horizontal.
Vertical, you
He
said.
wrote he wrote vertical, but then he
Oh,
corrected himself because
oh,
vertical
sorry.
doesn't make sense. How vertical would be the opposite. So again, he wrote how in the service realm everything is horizontal. There's no service better than the other. So the person speaking this lecture said that in the asana, whoever's in the asana is doing the same amount of service of the person cleaning the floor after the program is done. So whoever's speaking the lecture on the seat, right? Like they're doing the same amount of service as the person who's cleaning the floor after the program is done. So in this sense, trying to be more complicated, thinking one is better than the other has no meaning. And what matters is the service attitude. And this is so important, I think, because it's when we're on that material mindset, right, and when we're looking at things materially, that's when the mind, we're taking shelter of the mind, actually, and the mind is a tool to be reined in. It's not who we are. And when we take shelter of the mind's job is to discern and discriminate and say, oh, this is hot, this is cold, or this is good, or this is bad, or this is etc., and this is etc. But when the mind gets a little too out of control, and where it's not like held in by the reins of the intelligence, then that's when we start comparing to the point of criticizing, right? Oh, this service is better than mine. Why can't I do this service? Or this is better than this, or this person is better than me, like you were mentioning, Doyal, right? They're farther along in life than I am. I'm the worst. Why can't I be there? Why aren't I there? And this idea of thinking that we're behind is so detrimental, I think, to just like our well-being in general, our spiritual well-being, our psychological well-being, because it really robs us of the opportunity of what you were saying, Doyal, of just like trusting in the divine unenfolding of like our life, and trusting that like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Everything is happening exactly as it's supposed to be happening, and
Mm.
trust, because one of the biggest elements of spiritual life is surrender. It is surrender. And I don't remember if Achyuta Gopi was talking about this in this podcast or if I heard it in a class that she gave. I can't remember. But she was saying how I can't remember. But she was saying how in the Bhagavad Gita, right, Arjuna tried very hard to like equivocate and make sense of his dilemma at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, and he tried to kind of prove to Krishna why he shouldn't fight, right? Like why he shouldn't engage in this war, and why this and why that. No, there's this reason. No, there's this reason. No, there's that reason. And he gave all these like fancy arguments as to why he was right, basically. And at the end of the day, what really needed to happen was for Arjuna to surrender, right? To surrender to Krishna and say, actually, I don't know. Actually, I'm bewildered. Actually, my heart is going through it. And actually, I'm surrendering unto you. And please just tell me what should I do? Right. And after that, Krishna really understood, like, okay, now you can be instructed. Like now I can actually tell you, the reality and the truth. And I think in our lives, I definitely have this experience. Like when I'm mentally trying to figure stuff out, and when I'm like really complicating things and really just like, why isn't it working this way, or why isn't it like this? Why, or how, or what, or this, or etc. I tend to bring myself into kind of like a spiral or a mire or an impasse of not being able to go forward. And really, it's like, okay, like let me just like drop all this stuff and really, really try and take shelter and really try and surrender. And to tie it all back in, we need loving relationships with people on the spiritual path to be able to do that, right? Because there's one thing that's like surrendering to Krishna, and that's a very like personal thing. That's a very personal thing. But also, we're surrendering to our spiritual teachers and our guides, and we're confiding in them, and we're telling them like how what's going on in our life. And I think that if those spaces aren't created, then it becomes very what we've been talking about this week of like, happy spiritual community. How are you? I'm great. How are you? Oh, I'm also great. And it's like we're not really talking about what's underneath. So I was telling you, Doyal, yesterday on the train, like I really appreciate that shift, because I do think people need space to just like be heard, like this is what I'm going through. And it's tough and it's intense and whatever it might be, as opposed to like fitting into the mold of like, this is what it means to be spiritual. And I'm just happy all the time and everything's great. And so I really appreciate that, because that element of surrender happens on that personal level with Krishna, but it's also happening like I'm surrendering to my service or to my community or to my teachers or my guides or my mentors. And I'm going to trust that others have my best interests at hand. Because I think that's, and I really want to hear what you have to say, Dayal, but I'll end here. I think that's really the kicker, because we've been talking about home and feeling like, am I at home, am I not at home? At the Bhakti Center we say we're your spiritual home, we want to be your spiritual home. And we've talked about all of these like complex feelings that come up with home, because it's like, am I welcome, am I wanted, is it safe, can I take shelter here? Or is it the opposite? Am I not wanted? Am I unwelcome? I don't trust people. And so actually creating that space through our relationships of like, I'm here for you, I'm just going to listen. I think that's one of the most important services that we can actually do. And it's not a very bells and whistles service, it's just like, I'm just going to be here for you.
Mm. I have a question because I'm curious how you're navigating that aspect of life because you're a teacher, by trade. You've been a teacher, both you're a yoga teacher, you're a kirtan teacher, you're a wisdom teacher, you're a retreat leader. You're also you're also a community builder in the sense that you are in a place of you have a role at the Bhakti Center that you have goals and you have daily tasks and you have management and you have staff that you oversee and that in order to keep them on track but also that need care and attention. And then also you have, being you work at programming at the Bhakti Center programs, and that involves building relationships with teachers and building relationships with students and just kind of like helping to build this community sense. So, you know, there's this dichotomy also in your life of like, we've thought about it in our own life, like, I've this year alone, I've been outside of New York City as much, if not more, than I've been in New York City because we've been leading retreats and doing courses, etc. And so I'm just curious for you, like how is that on a personal level? Where do you find yourself navigating that line of doing more and being out there and pushing the envelope forward and just sort of boiling the vegan milk sort of aspect of just like I'm not I'm actually like the phrase that was coming to my mind in the kirtan that I was wrestling with was do less.
Mm.
It was do less, and then I was like, should I be doing less, etc. But there's so many things I'm supposed to be like. Now's the time to be pushing forward. But then this phrase like do less was coming up, and so I'm curious how you navigate that and how that shows up in your life
Hmm.
personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a journey, I'll put it that way. But
Mm,
something that I'm realizing, and I said this earlier this week, is, I made this comment earlier this week about like really knowing yourself and really knowing who you are and really knowing what works for you, really knowing what gives you energy and what brings you peace, and knowing
mm,
what drains you. We were at a very dear friend's house on Tuesday, and your wife was talking to me about human design, which I have no idea what it is, but I'm all into
mhm,
like, yes, tell me what number I am, or tell me like what category I am. Yes, yes, I want to learn about myself. And I remember when she's was really into the Enneagram, I was like, tell me all the things.
mm,
And anyway, she told me whatever I was, like she put my dates into the thing and whatever. And it was so interesting because I was like reading about myself or like my type. And I was like, Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And I do feel this way. And this definitely is me. And the reason I bring this up because of one specific thing, like it just clicked in my mind right now while you were speaking, is something that I want to do. And I do, but I tend to get lost in the doing sometimes. That I think that, and I think it's a good general principle. I think that the more that we can make our lives simpler and less complicated, and the more and work and our service more simple and less complicated, and the more that we can maximize like just human connection and being loving and real with each other, the better. Because I think that when we get lost in the doing, and I think this applies to all of us, when we get lost in the doing and the doing and the doing and the doing, um when I have to show up, because this has happened to me in the past a lot, when I have to show up, have to when I am showing up like physically teaching a class or leading a this or leading over to whatever, I'm a very like emotional and sensitive person, so I have a tendency to just like, hello, I am here, okay, let us do the class, like just kind of like really compartmentalize things, which is not the healthiest. And I
Mm.
noticed that like I can't be fully present because I'm quote unquote doing so much, or I feel drained from this thing. And I think that that goes back to just like knowing who you are, like what drains you, what nourishes you, what gives you energy, what doesn't, and how is that working out for you, so that over here in this other section of life where I am having relationships with people or I am showing up for people, like is it negatively affecting that or is it bolstering it up? And that's something that I've really really noticed, because I remember at one point I was leaving the kirtan early. I was just like, I can't do this, like I just need to like leave early. And then like after like 3 weeks of doing that, I was just like, no, but I want to talk to people and I want to be present, and I know I'm in this position of being like a community builder and a leader and etc. So what do I need to do so that I have energy to stay, even if it's just for 10 minutes, even if it's just to give
Mm.
someone a hug and just look at someone in the eye and smile and just like really be there for them. And so I went and I figured it out. It's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And, like this. And so I think it's just, there's so many answers to this question on a, like on a very practical level, like, putting systems in place. Oh yeah, and this is why I brought up the human design thing, because the human design thing said about me that my type likes to put things in systems so that it makes everything simpler. And I was like, yes, that is what I'm doing right now, and in my service. And I think just like in general, that's such a nice life hack, as they say, right? A life hack. It's just like, how do I make everything around me simpler so that I can just like be more present in my daily life for myself, for
Mm.
my friends, for my family, for my partner, whatever it might be. Like, how do I make the thing that seems so complicated and so overwhelming? Like, I have to send all the emails and I have to do all the things and I have to organize. How do I just like focus on that and bite the bullet and say, like, how do I simplify this? So now I can have more time to be like actually present.
Mm. How can I make things simpler so I can be more present? I love that. We got a Chuta coming in. She was having tech difficulties. She can come in for our takeaway. But we got takeaways. It's time. And we've got Kimberly. If you got some takeaways for us, I'd love to hear what you're walking away with, Kishore, and we can hear a bright word from a Chuta because she just popped in. What do you got for us, Kimberly?
All right. I have do less. There's something simple at the core of everything. Um
Mm.
Everything we need is within this moment, and the idea of being present, loving fully with our hearts and trusting that we're being guided. And then I like the analogy of the boiling milk slowly and it becoming condensed and sweeter, and the idea of like just improving the quality of what we have right now.
Mm.
Mm. Thank you, thank you. What are you walking away with, Kishore?
Do less, but not do less. Let me rephrase that, because I think sometimes when people think do less, it's like I'm just gonna sit on my couch and zone out and like,
Mm.
the
We're canceling the
um
podcast, everybody.
I think it's more about, instead of doing less, and you always say this, Doyal, it's like do what nourishes you. Do what nourishes you so that you can feed yourself, so that you can be more present for the things that you do have to show up for.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Chuta just popped in. Chuta, can we hear your voice before we cut out?
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Yeah, never trust your internet with rain.
That's the lesson.
That's the real lesson of
that's
today.
the title. That's the title.
That's the title. That's the title. Martha wrote, so maybe we need to be more present as we do, and in the doing, we be more meaningful, and we will not feel the need to do less. I'm not sure if I fully understand that, but it sounded beautiful.
Sounds great.
I think I got it. I think the main thing was that if we're really present in what we do, we won't feel the need to do more or less. We'll just be at our natural place because we're just doing things on a very present human level. Thank you, Martha. Pasha said, hey, Chuta, your voice is so soothing. Thank you. We love you guys. We love you all so much. Thanks for being here. It's Friday, so we're not going to be here Saturday or Sunday, but we will pick it up on Monday. Thank you all so much. Be well. Take care. Do less. Be more present. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.